Coogs house. Last year, Tahaad Pettiford and Auburn marched into the Toyota Center and had a coming out party to show the world that they too were a Final Four caliber team. This year, the script is flipped, and Houston's gonna be the one showing off some new toys.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, and whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making the Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day, making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Now, we're going to get to more all kinds of stuff Auburn, Houston in this bonus episode of Locked On Cougs. But if you want to join the conversation and you don't know what to say, without getting too much into the details, Alabama barbecue seems to have a very unique and different sauce, I'm learning. I'm not sure how I feel about it. So if you know anything about it, tell us how you feel about it or other odd barbecue things down below. All right, I'm talking the first segment about Auburn and what they look like and how they will be dramatically different this year than last year. Still good, but different. And then in the second segment, I want to talk about how the script is a little bit flipped from how it was a year ago. And Houston may be the one showing off a lot of new, even with less new on the roster. So obviously, the big coaching thing that happened with Auburn was Bruce Pearl steps down late enough in the cycle that Stephen Pearl gets the job. It sounds like I'm talking to Zach and others with his squad of folks at Auburn. That was always going to be the case. However, the timing of that's a little odd. Well, excuse me. And Stephen Pearl's a new coach, and they're running a little bit different offense and things like that. They have altered starting lineups in all 3 games. They played 3 games against. Look, let's just be honest. They played Bethune-Cookman, Merrimack, and Wofford. They have not played a murderer's row of teams. I would even say as much scrutiny as Houston's first 3 games have gotten under from some folks, Auburn's looks much lighter in the pants than even the one Houston, just because Houston theoretically played a couple of tournament teams, even if they're 15, 16 seed caliber teams. I'm not sure I could say the same for what Auburn's done so far. And that Bethune-Cookman game went to overtime. That's not great. Now, Terry Morris is on Bethune-Cookman. That's a separate show. Today, we're talking about the Auburn Tigers, and they've had a different starting lineup in each one of those games. They did, in the Bethune-Cookman game, had Elijah Freeman, Keyshawn Hall, Filip Jovic, Kevin Overton, and Tahaad Pettiford. Then, after that went to overtime, and they had to fix some things. They fixed some things against Merrimack by starting with Keyshawn Hall, Filip Jovic, Kevin Overton, Tahaad Pettiford, and Sebastian Williams-Adams, Houston's very own from St. John's High School. Then they played Wofford more recently, and to mix things up a little bit more, they went back to Elijah Freeman, kept Keyshawn Hall, kept Filip Jovic, went to Tahaad Pettiford, and brought in Sebastian Williams-Adams. And so moving Overton around, moving Elijah Freeman around, they're still figuring out that 5th starter, it feels like, but they knew they wanted to insert Sebastian Williams-Adams in there. What's consistent here is, if you're paying attention at home or you know any of these names, is A, they're showing off a lot of the new toys. Freshmen and transfers are getting featured very prominently as Tahaad Pettiford and the new guys. Second, it's also Tahaad Pettiford and the 6'8" guys. It seems very clear that 6'7", 6'8", whatever the case may be, they're just going to play Tahaad, who's listed 6'1", probably closer to 5'11", and a bunch of big perimeter guys. In this matchup, I'm not sure who to place as each of their starters. I'm going to work with their most recent one, but if anything, it feels like they're maybe going to go to a whole new 5th starter. We'll see, right? I would think that Milos Uzan gets the Tahaad Pettiford matchup. Last year, Tahaad Pettiford had a massive coming out party in this game, but the majority of that came actually in the last 7 minutes of the game, the clutch time of the game, when Milos Uzan was in foul trouble and fouled out of this game. That was kind of the Tahaad Pettiford show started, right? That's when that started. I imagine Houston goes back to well. I also think you'll have a very refocused Milos Uzan and flipping the script there, right? Because people forget about how good a defense he played in that first game, because ultimately he felt I had to watch Pettiford take over at the end, right? So I think Milos wins that one, but that's the matchup I see there. I think you'll probably see some combination of Emanuel Sharp and Cenac guarding some combination of Keyshawn Hall and Sebastian Williams-Adams. I say that because those guys are both 6'7", 6'8", and I don't know that 6'7", 6'8", that's the hands thing. I don't know that either one truly plays inside, but I think between the strength of Emanuel Sharp on the perimeter, just he's broad-chested, big-shouldered, long arms, and then Cenac's versatility, you'll see him as a stretch four out there as well. I think Kingston Flemings ends up on, I guess it was Freeman most recently. I think it's Elijah Freeman most recently. I could also see him on Keyshawn Hall if it came to that, because he's more of a traditional guard if he ends up in there. But Freeman getting a couple of starts here makes me think it might be the bigger guy, and Freeman is bigger, but I don't think he's quite as much of a threat as Keyshawn Hall is. Keyshawn Hall is leading them in scoring and leading what I would assume is the SEC in scoring at 24.3 points per game. Has not had less than 20 points in a single game yet this year. So I kind of want a veteran there from Houston. Plus, when Houston played him a year ago at UCF, they were able to hold him to just 6 points. Now, admittedly, he was playing more of a traditional forward then. Now he's playing more of a stretch forward or a big guard kind of spot. Matchups a little bit different, all of that. But Houston understands him a lot. It's the kind of same thing with Kevin Overton. Overton did not play the first game against Tech, or first Houston game against Tech a year ago. But in the second game, he played 25 minutes, had just 5 points, and Houston beat Tech in that one. So Houston understands how Overton fits into things, just maybe into new things here. Now, the big guy will be interesting because Filip Jovic, got to get it correct, Parker. Jovic is a freshman from Bosnia Herzegovina, and he's 6'8", he's 225. He is listed as a forward. He people think of the European stretch forward. He's not that kind of a forward, but he's also just not much of a scoring threat. 6 points per game, and they're playing a bunch of scrubs. He's not a gigantic rebounding threat at 6 rebounds per game, which means that I am going to put JoJo Tugler on him. And I know that you're going to put the National Defense Player of the Year candidate on the least scoring threat available. I think the big thing there to me is I want JoJo to be like the free safety backline of the defense at all times. And I think that's the easiest spot for him to do that. That's the matchup I've got there. Now, in terms of the bench work, I will say the fact that they've rotated through that, 7 guys or so in the starting lineup makes me think that their first 7 are guys they feel pretty comfortable about. You also see that in the minutes distribution. They have 6 guys with 23 or better minutes, but only 2 guys, Keyshawn Hall and Tahaad Pettiford, over 27 minutes. So they clearly have a bunch of guys glumped there in the middle. I would point out that their only true center, like only listed center, is Miko Porum. He's like 7'1". Plays about 7 minutes a game, or 16 minutes a game. Sorry, I'm reading something else about his height. I think the bench, though, does go Houston's way. I think it goes Houston's way for a couple reasons. But one, if Kalifa, Sakho, and Chase McCarty are good to go, I think it definitely goes Houston's way. If only one of them is, I think it could be shifty. If Isaiah Harwell was able to step in and get some shots in this game, he didn't ever seem like he was like oiled up and loose in the last game. I think it's going to be important to keep him loose in this one, but I could see all of that adding up to being impactful in this game. I think you're going to see Houston play small, different points with Chase McCarty and Ramon Walker and guys like that because of how much 5-out kind of stuff Auburn wants to do. One thing Stephen Pearl's doing that Bruce Pearl did not do nearly the same way is with these 6'8" bodies, he's doing a lot of, forward is just the first one down the floor, and we're doing 4-out, 1 in, or 5-out kind of stuff. No one's inside of 15 feet to open up driving lanes for Tahaad. And honestly, the way it's worked out has been driving lanes for Keyshawn Hall. Now, I think that Houston will do a fine job on Keyshawn Hall. I also think that, he's right now, let me make sure I got this number right. He's shooting 75% from 3 because he's making 2 out of less than 3 per game. I think Houston's going to make those more difficult shots for Keyshawn Hall, right? That's kind of how I see this one shaking out. I am picking Houston, and I told Zach that in the Friday crossover show. I also really, really confidently feel like one Houston Cougar is going to really show off in this basketball game. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. Before we get there, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at DoorDash because it's officially the weekend. It's Saturday. It's time to look back at the MVP of the week, and that is Kingston Flemings. Kingston Flemings delivered when matters most, powered by DoorDash. Just like Kingston, you can win on every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order. Plays deliver matters most. Now, he had 19 points. He had 20 points the game before. I think the big remarkable thing to me is the speed with which he plays and the confidence with which he defends. He is sure that whoever he is covering is not going to score the basketball, which for a freshman is remarkable. And for Sampson is perfect. Now, for Kingston Flemings and the Cougs, that was a big time delivery, but been building to this for a long time. You know, it's not just some sort of a fluke. This is a streak he is starting the season off on. He's ended his high school career on it. He's starting his college career on it. Just like Kingston Flemings delivered the Cougs, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays, DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season long. You save $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday today. Order today. Keep the streak alive. View your game day on DoorDash. Turns plan promo goes through November 18th, so get it on it, folks. Parker's locked on Coogs on a little bonus stuff, looking at what Auburn's got going. And last year, this game was the first week of the season, and so like it's a week later this time around. But I think the remarkable thing last year, well, the remarkable thing, first thing I guess, was that Auburn fought each other on a plane on the way over and had to turn the plane around. Ultimately, still came to Houston to play, but that was a weird deal. The more remarkable thing, though, I think, in looking at this a year ago, was that we all knew Tahaad Pettiford was a very good high school player and that he'd gotten to Auburn, but he was not even a starter at that time at Auburn. And he really, I mean, he lit up and won the game at the end. We talked going into it about Janai Broom and this and that, and that none of that mattered when Tahaad Pettiford took over. It was a coming out party of sorts. And frankly, it was a moment where people realized, okay, Houston's new point guard fouled out, and they looked like they were in trouble in spots. And that was kind of the theme of November for Houston. But Auburn looks for real. And then, as Houston started winning games in December and January, people said, hey, that Auburn team's for real. And Houston lost them with a new point guard that fouled out with 5 minutes left. Like, maybe they're for real too. And then very quickly, I was like, okay, these are both for real teams. Okay, very quickly, these are both Final Four teams. And very quickly, these are both teams that were a possession or two away from national titles, right? That's how, I mean, Auburn played Florida with that kind of a couple possession here, a couple possession there kind of game in the Final Four. Houston played Florida with the possession here, possession there kind of game in the championship game. Both of those could have an easy flip script. And for what it's worth, technically, they processing argument about Florida. But anyway, the big deal for that one was it was an announcement of sorts. Here is Tahaad Pettiford leading these Cougars. And frankly, Zach joked on Friday's show, but Zach has been consistent since. I mean, I can pull up text messages. It feels like every 10 days last basketball season after Houston and Auburn played, it would be big game Tahaad, big game Tahaad, big game Tahaad. That was just what they called him after that. And I think the script is flipping. And I think the big game name is going to be Kingston Flemings. I think that things have been trending in this direction. And I really look at this lineup and say, okay, they have size. I don't know that they have the speed to keep up with Kingston in the full court kind of stuff. I think they're going to be very focused on Milos Uzan as a point guard. I assume, where Tahaad Pettiford goes. But either way, both Milos and Kingston are bigger than Tahaad Pettiford. I also think that this 6'8", 6'8", 6'8", 6'8" lineup is cool. It's flexible on offense. There's a lot of great things. It lacks help side rim protection in a way that if I were an Auburn Tigers fan, I would be alarmed by. And we see the way Kingston has been able to blow by defenders, put the ball on the floor, and attack the rim, right, in various spatial kind of ways. I like Auburn from unless they play the kid from Lagos, who I mentioned earlier, Mako Purum, who's been playing 16 minutes a game against scrubs. If they play him like 35 minutes a game, all of a sudden they might have a rim protector. But right now, he's the only. I guess Keyshawn Murphy plays some, but not a lot. And he's 6'9.5". They round to 6'10" on one site. I don't know they've got a real rim protector guy in there. Now, they've got muscle to body with Cenac, and they've got, muscle to body with JoJo and all that. And they got length to contest outside shots. They've got tall perimeter guys. They don't have tall inside guys. And I think that's where you're going to see Flemings beat guys out the bounds because of his elite speed, explode to the rim, and finish at the rim. And this is kind of where I see the script flipping is because last year, this was a Tahaad Pettiford. Look at this freshman. Oh my God, how far can he help carry this team? You and I and the Cougar faithful have seen Kingston Flemings for 3 games. But if we're being honest, the national audience has seen some highlight clips on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and has seen the opponent's been Oakland and not tuned in, or the opponent's been Towson and not tuned in. And you and I are like, no, like this is the real deal. And I think this is kind of when America sees it too. This is a primetime game, Sunday afternoon, major TV network, which is now back on all the distributors. This is a big deal, and this could be that kind of a moment for Kingston. And when I'm interested, because I'm picking Houston to win no matter what kind of a game Kingston has. I don't want to put that. I don't mean to put that kind of pressure on him. But it does feel like if it's not Kingston, then is it Chris? Is it Chase? Does Milos go bonkers? I mean, Houston's had some lopsided wins with poor shooting performances thus far. Do they finally start to fall? This is not quite a road game. It's in Birmingham, Alabama, which is not Auburn, Alabama. It's close, but not exactly the same. But last year's Houston Cougars did not lose a true road game, right? If this feels like a true road game, because it is a one-off game. It's not like so last year in Toyota Center, you remember there was actually a 2-game slate and a ticket got you a ticket to both games. Well, that really meant that there were fans from other teams that weren't even involved in the Houston and Auburn game in the stadium for that one, right? This is a singular game. This is Houston. This is Auburn. There's gonna be a lot of navy and orange, and it should be. Go enjoy it. I'm not. That's what it should be. But we saw Houston actually elevate their play last year. We also know Houston's returning 3 of those starters and Kelvin Sampson, who won over 800 games, which is not the win percentage that 3-0 Stephen Pearl has over at Auburn, but is certainly not a bad thing, right? I don't teach math, but it doesn't seem like a bad thing. I think though that if it's not Kingston, I'm okay. It feels like it is going to be someone though. I feel in my heart like it's Kingston in this game, but I feel in my brain like it will be somebody, right? Because they're replacing guys like Cryer and Juwan Roberts and stuff like that, and Sampson always has the replacement built in somewhere, and they've been working on it behind closed doors and through stuff that if you're picking up on a little bit here and there, I think it'll be King. If you think it'll be somebody else, tell me in the comments down below. We're excited to get into this one. Will be live after the game is over. When it hit subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we go live. You're at Locked On Cougs, and Locked On Cougs is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And thank you for helping us get there. If you're looking for something else to listen to today, as it's a football Saturday, Locked On Big 12 is covering the entire conference on the Houston football bye week while we get ready for Auburn on Sunday afternoons. Go check that out with Drake Toll as well. Again, Locked On Cougs, primarily Locked On Podcast, your team every day. Go Cougs.